Good morning, I'm Mai Rodriguez sitting in for Mikey Oreta, and you're watching Basis Points, where we dive deep into the numbers and stories that drive our economy and shape our world. The headlines. Jane Veloso is finally back in the Philippines after being jailed in Indonesia for more than a decade. Lawmakers seek amendments to the country's Consumer Act, which they say is outdated. And the Philippines and the U.S. are working on an open skies agreement that would increase flights between the two countries. First, let's take a quick look at the financial markets. U.S. stocks retreated on Tuesday. The Dow dropped for a ninth straight session as investors exercise caution ahead of the Federal Reserve's last policy announcement for the year. The S&P 500 closed lower at 0.39%. The Nasdaq also down by 0.32%. The Dow Jones also lower by more than 0.5%.
I think today what's going on is that the Dow's had, I think, the ninth consecutive day of losses so far. And we've seen a rotation back into some of the old names that have led the market for most of the year in the Max 7 and big tech space. And I think you're starting to see a little bit more momentum going into those names just due to the fact that the idea of less regulation, for those names, the president-elect is much better than what the other choice was with antitrust issues.
Over in Europe, the FTSE finished lower by 0.81%, while France's CAC 40 was up by 0.012%. In the Asia-Pacific, markets are showing a mixed start. Japan's Nikkei is down by 0.48%, while South Korea's Kospi is up by 0.49%. Australia's S&P SAX 200 is also up by 0.28%. Jane Veloso is finally back in the Philippines after spending more than a decade in an Indonesian prison. She touched down at the NAIA this morning. Let's get details from Francis Falve.
Jane Veloso is now undergoing standard protocols here at the Correctional Institution for Women. She will also undergo a 5-day quarantine. According to information from the Bureau of Corrections, Veloso was not handcuffed and does not wear body armor during her transfer from the airport to the CIW. Personnel from the Bureau of Corrections, the National Bureau of Investigation, and Department of Foreign Affairs handled the security arrangements for her transfer. She will stay in the same room where Cassandra Leong was previously detained. She gave the media a smile when she alighted from the vehicle and waved. The Bucor has verified her papers and is now undergoing a medical checkup, and then they will get her biometrics like fingerprints and mugshots. It can be recalled that Veloso was arrested at an airport in Indonesia in 2010 after being caught with 2.6 kilograms of heroin in her luggage. She was sentenced to death by firing squad, but the Philippine government appealed to Indonesia to grant her a reprieve or postponement of the execution while her case was under review. After more than 14 years, hope emerged for Veloso when the Indonesian government decided to allow her to go back to the Philippines. According to the Indonesian government, the decision regarding Veloso's case is now under Philippine jurisdiction. And that's the latest from here. Back to you.
Thank you for that report. That was Francis Falve giving us an update from Mandaluyong. Lawmakers will reach out to the DOST and DICT to assist them in amending the Consumer Act and the Price Act that they call outdated. The proposed changes for this and more in Agatha Gregorio's report.
Some senators and agencies are in agreement of one thing. The Consumer Act of the Philippines, which they call outdated, is in need of amendments. The Trade Department, the National Economic and Development Authority, and the Agriculture Department all showed support for amending the law.
Experience po namin sa Department of Agriculture, agri-fishery commodities, especially yung raw or fresh, yung difficulty, especially in the controlling of prices because of several factors. Lalo-lalo na po yung weather, pest and diseases, yung seasonality ng mga agri-fishery commodities. So ito po yung tinitingnan namin na if we are going to introduce some measures kung paano ma-strengthen ng DA yung identification of what are the mechanisms on how to in a way mitigate yung mga fluctuations.
This was amended in 2022, but the amendment was about placing timbangan ng bayan centers in public and private markets. This is why the Senate is enlisting the help of agencies such as the Department of Information and Communications Technology and the Department of Science and Technology to be a part of a technical group to amend the existing law. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano also proposes the use of new technology like artificial intelligence in pricing products. DA supports having a mechanism like this, saying that right now they are doing everything manually in monitoring market prices. Cayetano says employees will not lose their jobs as there still needs to be random checking even with the use of AI. Cayetano also expects they will finalize amendments by January and tackle the amendments on the Senate floor by then. Among the proposals is an increase in penalties for unfair trade practices. In the current version of the law, penalties may go up to 300,000 pesos for violations related to the article on fraudulent practices relative to weights and measures. Regarding consumer complaints, after an investigation, administrative fines could even reach 300,000 pesos.
Personally, I'm not sure pa dun sa increase ng penalty. Kasi yung science sa criminology is it's the certainty na mahuli rather than yung... So, ibig sabihin, death penalty, wala naman nahuhuli. Isang linggong kulong, pero nahuhuli lahat. Mas takot ang tao dun. But if you look at the MMDA, di ba? Lahat ng agencies, never knew sure kung sasamahan kayo ng media. Paano malalaman ng tao na nanghuhuli talaga kayo? Para may takot sila. If you look at yung sa MMDA, for example, di ba? Yung kanilang... SOCMED, di ba, na pagka may pumasok sa bus lane, meron ka agad, may 2-in-1, 3-in-1 purpose. One is that safe din sila kasi it's not he said, she said. Di ba? Kasi dati, pagka may makapangyarihan bumaba, hindi, bastos yung enforcer. Eto ngayon, naka-live ka eh. So, kita mo, di ba? Less excuses eh. Kasi lahat tuloy, pag napanood yon, kinakausap na driver nila. Oh, nakita nyo na ha, walang exemption yan ha.
Cayetano adds it would be best for the DA to document and post their raids, just as the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority does for traffic violators. Agatha Gregorio, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Finance Chief Ralph Recto says PhilHealth has adequate resources to finance its obligations to its members and even improve benefit packages, despite the lack of subsidies in next year's national budget. Recto cites the state insurers' reserve funds worth 250 billion pesos. PhilHealth President and CEO Emmanuel Ledesma previously said that their financial position is strong and sufficient to sustain its operations. PhilHealth was supposed to receive more than 74 billion in subsidies next year, but Senate Committee on Finance Chairperson Grace Poe said the state insurer should tap its reserve funds first. The largest offshore gaming operation hub in the country, located in Island Cove in Kawit, Cavite, has been permanently shut down. Francis Falve has this report.
This 32-hectare Pogo Hub complex in Island Cove, Kawit, Cavite is now a ghost town. There are 58 buildings, more than 30 of which were used as dormitories for Pogo workers, all now abandoned. Aside from gaming rooms, the site also had convenience stores, restaurants, a salon, a clinic, a fire station, and a recreation park. According to PAOK, the operations of Purse Orient, the company licensed to run the site, had already shut down a month ago. On Tuesday, the DILG, PAOK, Bureau of Immigration, PAGCOR, the PNP, and the Cavite LGU inspected the site and posted closure signs on each building. The property used to be owned by the Remulyas, the family of DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, who joined the inspection. He was governor of the province when the hub started.
Ang Island Cove papunta sa lessors ngayon ng property na to, ang Remulla family ay walang involvement whatsoever. Nung ako ay governor, wala akong pinirmahan na permit, wala akong pinirmahan na development permit, walang dumaan sa akin na letter of no objection. Nung kapatid ko ay DOJ, ay wala rin dumating sa kanyang kahit anumang pirma para mag-operate to. Yung kapatid ko sa PAGCOR na director, doon siya in-appoint na ito lahat ay existing na at wala na siyang pinirmahan in whatever way or form to endorse the operation of this island.
First Orient General Manager Ron Lim says they applied for permits from Kawit Municipality and PAGCOR before the Pogo Hub commenced operations in 2019. SEC records show there were 2 companies registered under First Orient. Some owners carried the Rimulya name. However, Lim clarified that these companies have since been dissolved after the property was sold. Now, they are still unsure of what to do with the property. Approximately 15,000 Filipino employees and 15,000 foreign workers have been affected by the shutdown. According to PAGCOR Chair Alejandro Tenco, the Island Cove Pogo was the last major Pogo hub in the country.
They have scaled down their operations also since last year. So, kung dating halos puno ang mga building na to, dahan-dahan na rin silang nagbawas. At dahan-dahan na rin silang wika nga'y nagtatanggal o nagbabawas ng kanilang mga operations dito. At sa araw ngang ito, ay makikita nating wala na pong matitira dito na offshore gaming operations dito sa tinatawag na Island Cove Hub sa Kawit, Cavite.
Authorities say they will monitor the closed Pogo sites, especially since reports have surfaced of guerrilla operations using BPO as cover.
Pagtutulungan po namin, after January 1, you will see ang powerful po ng gobyerno laban sa ganito.
We will be utilizing yung mga barangays natin, kasi most likely sila po yung nakakakita. There's a lot of indicators kung paano nyo po malalaman na mayroong Pogo operation sa isang lugar.
The president's deadline to shut down all Pogo operation in the country is December 31. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Authorities raid another Pogo hub, this time in Parañaque City. They admit the Pogo crackdown may continue beyond President Marcos's December 31 deadline on the shutdown of all Pogos in the country. This report from Bea de la Cruz.
This is alias Letlet. She is a victim of human trafficking. The NBI rescued her in a raid in Parañaque. Letlet applied and worked as a housemaid in a company. But little did she know, it was actually a Pogo hub running online scams.
Nung nalaman po nila na nakaakyat na ako sa third floor at nalaman ko kung anong ginagawa nila doon, hinihigpitan na po nila akong maglabas-labas ng bahay. Natakot na po nila ako na wag lumabas. Iniisip ko baka ano pa ang mangyari sa akin.
For 2 months, she was barred from leaving the facility. She managed to get a hold of a cell phone and was able to call for help. The NBI says 7 Chinese nationals were arrested in the raid. They are allegedly involved in cybercrime-related activities like love and crypto scams.
Sa totoo, natagpuan nila katutak na computers, ginagamit sa lab scam, sa kung ano-anong kalokohan.
Final ho namin is at least 4 na charges. Meron ng AFASA, merong Kasambahay Law, merong Republic Act 10175, at merong Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act.
The NBI has yet to identify from which Pogo group the scammers belong to. The NBI also says, instead of waiting for complainants to come forward, they will hunt down Pogo hubs to expedite their closure.
The NBI is now proactive. Hindi kami mag-aantay ng complainant. We will look for them.
Operations, however, may spill over to the next year, despite the president's year-end deadline, since many large Pogos have broken into smaller groups. Bea de la Cruz, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We're taking a quick break. Stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and narratives that matter most to your bottom line.
Good morning, I'm Ferdy Salvador.
I'm Mikey Oreta, and welcome to Industry Beacon, where we shine a light on the trailblazers, the disruptors, and the industry leaders shaping our future. And in each episode, we'll explore how they're staying ahead in their respective fields, one industry at a time.
The industry changes quite rapidly.
We know where to go. We've got our comfort zone.
Those are early manifestations for the award.
I'm happy you told me that because now I know I'm not getting Alzheimer's.
Industry Beacon on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, what does the investigation cover? We tackle the issues.
The president's immunity from suit is absolute.
We clarify matters and we get on point.
Watch his press con. Sinabi niya na ayaw niya ng kudeta.
What is questionable about the AR, sir? The Vice President keeps insisting walang active threat kung hindi ako mamamatay.
Tignan na lang natin, mahirap pang pangunahan eh.
Pinky Webb on point.
You're watching Basis Points. Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange began earlier. Let's look at the initial figures. The main index is trading at 64.99, lower than yesterday's close of 65.01. Among the sub-indices, 3 are in the red, including the financials, holding firms, and property. The sub-indices heading north are the industrial, services, and mining and oil. Advancers outpace laggards 62 and 40 issues. So far, value turnover has reached more than 330 million. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso opened weaker at 58.89 against the dollar from its previous close of 58.871. Nearly 5.56 million foreign visitors arrived in the Philippines for this year as of December 17. This was reported by Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco during their year-end briefing. South Korea is still the country's top market, followed by the U.S., Japan, and other countries. Last week, Lee Chu Property Consultants released a report projecting 6 million international arrivals for the Philippines in 2024. This is lower than the Tourism Department's 7.7 million target. The Philippines and the U.S. have started negotiations for an open skies agreement that would increase flights between the two countries. That's according to U.S. Ambassador to Manila, Mary Kay Carlson. Under the agreement, airlines can freely fly international routes and compete openly with other airlines for passengers. The ambassador has noted a spike in the number of Filipinos who applied for non-immigrant visas to more than 300,000, the highest ever in the history of the U.S. Embassy. The ambassador also reports an uptick in the number of Filipinos who studied in U.S. higher educational institutions in the past 15 years. Jane Veloso is finally back home after being jailed for more than a decade in Indonesia. Hannah T. looks back at the events that gave Veloso a new lease on life.
A week before Christmas, overseas Filipino worker Jane Veloso finally returns to the Philippines from Indonesia. On April 25, 2010, Veloso was arrested at Yogyakarta Airport after 2.6 kilograms of heroin were found in her luggage. Veloso had been recruited for a supposed job in Malaysia, but upon arrival, no work opportunity was awaiting her. Her then recruiter, Maria Cristina Serio, arranged for her travel to Indonesia. Unbeknownst to Veloso, the bag given to her contained illegal drugs. This led to her being sentenced to death. According to Migrante International, Serio was the live-in partner of Jane's godbrother. Just hours before Veloso's scheduled execution, Serio surrendered to Philippine authorities. Veloso has consistently maintained she is a victim of human trafficking. On the day of her supposed execution, April 29, 2015, former President Noynoy Aquino personally appealed to Indonesian President Joko Widodo. Aquino also directly called the Indonesian foreign minister. As a result, the execution was put on hold, allowing Veloso to testify against her recruiter. Since then, various groups have consistently called for Veloso's repatriation. This year, Veloso's family received renewed hope after the government announced the possibility of her return. Indonesia had drawn up a broader plan to send foreign prisoners back to their respective countries, and Veloso was included in the list. President Bongbong Marcos had also devoted efforts to request Veloso's repatriation from the Indonesian government. The Department of Justice quickly submitted a formal request and sent representatives to Indonesia on December 6. Following the signing of a practical agreement between Indonesia and the Philippines, the government confirmed that Veloso may be reunited with her family before Christmas.
We would like to announce na officially Mary Jane Veloso is coming home.
Clemency for Mary Jane now. Supporters of Veloso are now hoping she will be granted clemency or a pardon. Hannah T., Bilyonaryo News Channel.
China relaxes its visa-free transit policy to attract more foreign travelers. It has extended the permitted stay for foreign travelers to 10 days from the previous 3 to 6 days. 21 additional ports have also been designated for visa-free entry and exit. Under the updated policy, citizens from 54 countries, including the U.S., the U.K., Russia, and Brazil, can enter China visa-free when transiting to a third country or region. China recorded nearly 30 million foreign visitors between January and November this year. The Alibaba Group is selling its department store chain In Time for more than $1 billion. Alibaba wants to shift focus from its dominance in China's retail sector to its e-commerce and cloud operations. In Time continues to face challenges due to a significant decline in Chinese consumer spending post-pandemic. And that's it for Basis Points. I'm Mai Rodriguez. We'll be back tomorrow for more news on the financial markets and more. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.